He crossed an ocean for a war that wasn't his. He was not born into a military family. There were no medals hanging on the walls of his childhood home. No faded photographs of grandfathers in distant uniforms. No folded flags in wooden frames. The tradition started with him. Let's call him Daniel Harper. He grew up in a quiet American town in the Midwest, a place where the grocery store closed at 9, where neighbors waved from porches, where Friday night football felt like a national event. At night, the loudest sound was a freight train passing through the dark. Long, metallic, predictable. As a kid, Daniel would lie in bed and listen to it. He would imagine the train traveling somewhere bigger, somewhere louder, somewhere important. He enlisted at 18, not because he was lost, not because he was angry at the world, but because he felt called. Some people chase careers. Some chase money. Some chase approval. Daniel chased purpose. Basic training stripped him down to something simple. Sweat, mud, discipline. It hurt, but it made sense. For the first time, the world felt structured. Clear rules, clear expectations, clear consequences. He deployed before he turned 21. Deserts that stretched beyond sight. Mountains that swallowed sound. Dust that clung to skin and memory. He learned quickly how to move without drawing attention, how to read silence, how to recognize fear in another man's breathing. He also learned about loss. The first time a friend did not come back, the world shifted. No speech prepared him for that. No ceremony fixed it. But the uniform stayed on. And so did the mission. Years passed. Rotations. Promotions. New faces. Old names carved into memory. Being a soldier stopped being something he did. It became who he was. Then his contract ended. He was 28. Still young. But old enough to feel time moving faster. He returned home. The town looked the same. Same train. Same grocery store. Same football field. But he felt different. He tried normal life. A civilian job. Morning coffee in a quiet kitchen. No radio chatter. No gear to clean. Silence. At first, it felt peaceful. Then it felt heavy. In February 2022, he was sitting on a couch when the news alert came through his phone. Missiles striking cities in Ukraine. He had heard the name before. In briefings, in policy discussions, in geopolitical analysis. But now there were videos. Apartment buildings collapsing. Cars burning in intersections. Families sheltering in subway stations. He watched a father kneel to hug his daughter at a train platform. He had seen that look before. Not fear. Resolve. It was the same expression worn by men who knew something was bigger than themselves. The coverage continued. Lines of civilians receiving rifles. Grandmothers filling sandbags. Students mixing Molotov cocktails. This was not a distant insurgency. This was a country standing up all at once. Something inside him shifted. He told himself it was not his fight. He told himself he had already done his part. But the videos kept playing in his mind. He began researching. He read about the history, about independence, about invasions, about broken promises. He stopped sleeping well. One night, sitting alone in the kitchen, he asked himself a question. If you believe in defending freedom, does geography decide when it matters? There was no dramatic decision, no farewell speech. He booked a ticket and crossed an ocean. He first arrived in Lviv. The bus rolled past old buildings painted in faded yellows and blues. Cafes were open. Students carried backpacks. Street musicians played violin under cathedral towers. It did not look like a collapsing nation. It looked alive. He felt almost disoriented. War footage had shown fire and smoke. This felt human. Normal. From there, he traveled to Kiev. The capital surprised him. Glass office buildings. Crowded coffee shops. Young professionals speaking English fluently. Air raid sirens sounding, and people calmly checking their phones before continuing their day. Resilience had texture here. It was not loud. It was steady. He met volunteers who organized logistics with precision. Warehouse systems rivaling private corporations. Supply chains mapped on whiteboards. Engineers assembling drones in basements. This was not chaos. This was mobilization. Soon he was sent east. The landscape changed. Flat open fields. Burned vehicles along roadsides. Factories shattered by artillery. The wind carried dust and metal. Afghanistan had been mountains and overwhelming air support. This was different. Here both sides had drones. Both sides had precision artillery. Both sides watched the sky. There was no illusion of dominance. Only awareness. The first time he heard an FPV drone, he did not recognize it. A faint mechanical buzzing. Like an insect circling too close. Then someone shouted. He hit the ground. The explosion came seconds later. From that day forward, that sound lived inside his nervous system. You do not search for where the drone is. You search for where to disappear. War had evolved. The sky hunted you now. He adapted. Camouflage changed. Movement patterns changed. Communication became shorter. He had expected discipline from trained units. What he did not expect was transformation. His trench partner had been a dentist 2 years earlier. Another had owned a bakery. One had been a software engineer, now modifying drone firmware between artillery strikes. These were not career soldiers. They were citizens. But war compressed time. They learned in months what once took years. Mine detection, counter-battery timing, thermal signatures, night navigation. Under pressure, humans accelerate. One mission changed him. A river crossing. Midnight. Water freezing against his chest. Rifle held above the surface. No lights. No words. Only breathing. And distant artillery flashing against clouds. The objective was clear. Cross quietly. Secure a structure. Capture documents and equipment. Halfway through the water, he felt something unexpected. Calm. Total clarity. Every movement deliberate. Every sound magnified. When they reached the far bank, chaos erupted. Gunfire tore through darkness. Flashlights cut across walls. Commands shouted in 2 languages. He moved on instinct. Room by room. Corner by corner. Minutes stretched like hours. Then silence. Objective secured. They had lost no one. Back across the river, soaked and shaking, he realized something. He no longer felt like a visitor. He belonged here, not because he was foreign, but because purpose had found him again. The war was not cinematic. Evacuation was not guaranteed. If you were wounded in the wrong sector, help could take hours, sometimes longer. There were nights when exhaustion felt heavier than armor, when shelling lasted until dawn, when doubt slipped into the cracks of fatigue. Once, during relentless bombardment, he allowed a forbidden thought. Maybe I made a mistake. Not about the cause. About his mortality. He imagined his mother receiving a phone call. He imagined his hometown reading his name online. The thought lasted seconds. Training pushed it aside. So did conviction. Back home, debates filled television screens. Arguments about funding, about politics, about strategy. From the trench, those conversations felt abstract. He saw teachers turned medics, farmers turned drone operators, entrepreneurs delivering supplies in armored vans. If critics could stand here for 1 week, they would understand. Distance distorts. Proximity clarifies. He met her in the south. Let's call her Mira. She came from a coastal city that had endured occupation and liberation. She volunteered at a coordination center. Their first conversation was practical. She corrected his pronunciation of a Ukrainian phrase. He laughed at himself. She did not smile immediately. Then she did. It was subtle. Over weeks, messages appeared on his phone after missions. Are you safe? 3 words. Sometimes that was enough to steady his hands. Through her, the country stopped being a battlefield. It became streets, markets, sunlight on apartment balconies. She told him stories of pre-war summers by the sea. He told her about freight trains in the Midwest. 2 different worlds, meeting in the middle of artillery fire. War rarely includes tenderness, but tenderness survives anyway. Months passed. Seasons changed. Fields turned from green to mud to frost. He received recognition for his actions during the river operation. But medals meant less than something else. Trust. He was trusted, not as an outsider, as one of them. When asked if he plans to return to America after the war, he pauses. He pictures his hometown, the quiet train, the football field, the grocery store closing at 9. Then he pictures something else. Land outside a Ukrainian village. A small house, vegetable rows planted in spring, chickens in the yard, morning fog without artillery. He does not describe it as a dream. He describes it as a plan. He did not cross the ocean for adventure. He did not come chasing glory. He came because something inside him recognized something here. A fight not for conquest, but for the right to exist. History will analyze alliances. Politicians will debate numbers. Analysts will write books. But for him, the explanation remains simple. He crossed an ocean, and somewhere between drone fire, river crossings, exhaustion, and 3 quiet words asking if he was alive, he found his place in the world. Not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. And sometimes, that is enough.